and Leslie, and Ashley?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I don't remember your last name.
I'm taking minutes, I'm sorry.
Oh, Ashley Carroll?
Approved minutes from our last meeting? They're not from our November meeting.
I think I had, oh, they were attached to the agenda, I believe. Let me see here. Anyone else print it out? I'll let you read them.
Do you want to read it?
Well, I think I might have extra copies, I'm not sure.
Sure.
I saw the annual report, did you guys see that too? Did they see that?
Yep, no, they have not seen it. I've got a couple things I want to clarify with it before you submit it.
I could read it if you don't have it handy.
Yeah, do you want me to go make some copies, or
No.
Right.
you guys
Just
just
read
look
it.
at it?
Yep.
It's really, it really wasn't that much, so.
Did you want to highlight anything out loud?
Did I what?
Did you want to read anything out loud? It's, or we can quick review that. Any corrections or additions? Accept a motion to approve the secretary's report.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Okay, old business, we started in the TNR program last April. It'll be soon understand we're giving it a try for a year to see how it goes. And I guess before we recommend to council that we should like to do it again, I think we've got money in our budget. Are there any comments, or have you heard anything?
I haven't heard any other than the few that have been done. But
I can
Ashley,
give
go
you
ahead.
a summary of what-
Yeah, go ahead,
what we've
please.
done.
There's
Do you
a
want me to
few-
come up there?
Yep, that's the best.
Or? Okay.
There's a microphone there, and they can pick you up better.
So I think it was either 10 or 11 that got actually TNR'd, and returned. But altogether we had 27 cats that we took care of in some way. So 13 of them were kittens that got into rescues. 2 adults were relocated to a barn. 2 others are in foster care, but then that leaves the 10 or 11, depending. Tawny and Lynn have mixed notes on that, that were returned. So, from the Bernack Park, from 5th and Main, from Peterson Street, and then from up by Mercy. So, that's what we done this year or last year. So
have we seen the cats that have been released? Are people still seeing them around, or
yeah,
have they?
so there's two tomcats that we have not seen for a little while. One that we haven't seen since summer, and then the other one we haven't seen since November. So, and part of, the ones that we have returned, they did have feeders, and they did have somebody that was actually like checking in with them daily. So like the 2 that went to a barn, they didn't have a feeder, and the neighborhood didn't want them back.
Yeah.
And then the two adults that went to foster care they seemed friendly, so we were like, okay, well,
But the ones that
maybe
you've
somewhere.
returned in the city,
yeah,
there's only 2 out of the 10 that we haven't seen again.
Yeah, and they're both Toms, so I don't
Yeah.
know if that has anything to do with anything, but,
Well, because once you neuter them, then their territory goes away, and then they, yeah, the other cats chase them away.
I had a woman ask me, she said, I've been feeding this cat for, I think, a couple of years, and disappeared one day. And didn't come back for about 3 days. And she said, his ear was cut. She wondered if it was neutered.
oh, probably. Well,
So,
he's not making babies no more.
Yeah.
that was I think it was a male. I'm not positive or not. So, it's a little different than what we kind of expected. We thought there were colonies, and would be a group of cats, and then later on another group of cats. And I think in every instance it's been one at a time. Possibly
Yeah,
once there might
well,
have been twice.
and part of that is we can't bring a whole group of cats to the West Branch Animal Clinic at one time. It's like they really only have time for one at a time. It fits
Unless-
into their schedule.
Unless you call ahead of time, I think, and say, hey, we're identifying these, could we, if we're working at this time? Because they are booked ahead.
Yeah, so, and that's a possibility, it's just, it's a little harder to schedule out, so, but, yeah. So,
And I called the clinic in just to see if they were okay with continuing to do it, and they are.
okay, I
Said
wondered,
I want them to understand that sometimes we're busy and we can't do it the same day like they want.
yeah, and so I've only trapped one myself, so it's mostly Tawny, and Lynn's done a couple, so I haven't dealt much with the clinic, but I know that keeping a feral cat in your house or your car or whatever is kind of a pain. So we were kind of wondering if we could consider IHA as a second option.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay, because they're pretty much, you show up at 7:30 in the morning, drop off the cat, pick it up the next day.
Yeah, but that's all they do.
Yeah, so that would be an option for us?
Do you know what their charges are?
I believe it's 55. Tawny had brought me a bunch of
So,
papers.
Similar
that
figures,
shows.
so.
Yeah.
But that would be satisfactory, I think, to everyone.
Okay, so, and then how would that work? Would we just get it done and then bring a receipt back and get reimbursed, or how?
I would presume,
I would imagine that they should bill the city.
Bill the city? Okay.
or better.
Yeah,
I mean, they work with lots of cities, so we can check with them, see how they normally do it.
yeah, 'cause we wouldn't typically just reimburse people that way. We would prefer a bill directly from the clinic.
Okay, awesome, good to know. Alright, did you need anything else from me?
Anyone?
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you, Ashley.
Alright,
Thank you.
yeah.
You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting.
Riveting, I'm sure.
It's renewed, right? The TNR program's renewed, or?
Well, the council has to approve
Yes.
it, so they can make the recommendation to the council.
Okay, and then, yeah, so how did that go with the council when you guys initially brought it up and all of that? Just a trial period, is that what was decided, and?
That was the questions we had at the time, and they approved it. And they decided that, you know, it's something new, we'll enter this as a trial program.
Okay,
And if there was dissatisfaction, they could always drop it.
okay,
But
but,
since the clinic was willing and the funds, it didn't exceed the amount of funds we had, so,
okay, so we're good to go another year?
depending on
Have to
council.
bring it up.
Depending on
council.
council,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
alright,
So
awesome.
we'll report back to the animal control, so we'll just check back with them on, between, your next meeting's in the middle of February.
9th is the next meeting.
Next
We
meeting.
should probably
Is
ask
on the
council
9th.
about it,
It was passed in April last year,
which is before.
so
the
it's not a
next meeting.
rush.
Okay. We'll
Yeah,
have
we,
an answer,
but
well,
we probably want that other issue to be talked about before we.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so maybe by your next meeting, we'll have council have a decision. Otherwise, for now, we'll just status quo. I think we've exceeded the budget with a recent issue which we'll talk about here shortly.
Okay.
Okay, thank you guys.
Okay. Thanks for coming. Next part of the agenda. Whoops. Oh, I lost my paper. What was it? We put an ordinance in last year to allow people to renew their city license for up to 3 years, and they couldn't exceed their rabies expiration date, thinking that that would make it easier. And it didn't quite work out that way, so Leslie, you want to take over?
Yeah. Well, we've made a lot of changes since I started, so we'll start from the beginning. We started giving them the ability for people to register their pets online. That was a huge time saver because otherwise people were coming, trying to get here after 4 o'clock or before 4 o'clock to get their pets registered. So that has gone very well. They can also pay for their fees online. They can register for the dog park and also pay those fees online. Last year when we went with the multi-year registration, we also offered a forever tag because we were constantly chasing tags around. 1 year your pet's number 2, and then next year it's 222, but they have their old tag on, they don't have their new tag on. It was really hard to identify them. So we've gone to issuing a forever tag. That has been helpful. The challenge still is, even though people can register them with their rabies, they don't ever seem to remember when all that happens. They don't remember when they registered them. They don't remember when their rabies expired. They're always expecting that reminder, and that's the part that's taking up a lot of time. I've dissected my spreadsheet many different ways, so that's really the challenge. I talked with Chief Hanna, and he has would like to make some recommendations as well. He just hasn't had a chance. He just kind of got on board, but maybe thinking about doing along with the forever tag, a forever registration. Once you register your pet, it's registered, and then make the fee appropriate to that. That way we've got one record of the pet for the life, and then we just ask people to tell us when the pet passes away, or we can, and then we can take it off our records. Or they could also, when they have a new pet, they would have to register the new pet. So those are just some initial conversations that we're having right now that would eliminate this constant sending out postcards. Again, it's an expense to the city for having to create different postcards and
For a
the
$5
time
fee.
and the postage and, all these constant reminders, sending them out each year. So
So
anyway.
what does the pet registration help?
Well, I kind of asked, some people myself, I said, so if someone gets the big thing is, I guess, a dog bite, really,
Yeah.
because if there's a dog bite, I've had calls and they'll say, is this pet registered? Well, what's the name? A lot of times they don't have a tag. A lot of the times they don't have a lot of information anyway. So my information sometimes is not helpful because not everybody wants to register the pet. They just think it's an extra fee that we've tacked on. And then if they say, well, what's a rabies? Does it have active rabies, or is it up to date? Well, my information is only as good as I have it. I can't make people give it to me. So I said, I hope your first call is to the vet once you figure it out, because my information may not be up to date. And up until a year ago, they didn't have any way to access information. I now have it on a Google spreadsheet, and I've shared that with the link with the police department so they can access it on weeknights and on the weekends when I'm not working. So we've tried to share information, but again, the information is only as good as what either somebody gives to me, or if they haven't updated it, it's not any good. So
Right.
yeah, so that's kind of the challenge, is this, I feel like there's a lot of keeping track of stuff that I don't really feel that there's a big value.
Yeah, there's some redundancy in tracing ownership. Rabies tag, they can trace it to a vet, people move and stuff.
Yeah.
And the redundancy is that
Yeah,
you can
and
also use the city tag to trace.
Right, and I think, when this ordinance probably was passed years ago, there was no such thing as microchipping. And now with microchipping, I think a lot of people probably do that. I'm not a pet owner, so I don't know, but I'm going to guess a lot of people have their dogs chipped. So it's a quick, easy way to find out pretty much everything about that pet. And me keeping it on a spreadsheet, no matter how nice and pretty it looks, really isn't that much value. So, anyway, so we're just gonna be exploring some additional ideas. And then in regard to that, so the last meeting I think you guys had, you had approved a increase in fee. We've held off on that only because, you know, rather than going through that step of changing the fees and then maybe changing them again if we decide to go with a one-time registration fee. And then, anyway, so we held off on that till we can have another discussion. And Chief Hanna said he would try to come to the next meeting and bring up some of his concerns, because he does have some other concerns that have cropped up in the last couple of months. And then in regard to the annual report, I noticed there was a discrepancy on, discussed and voted to keep the dog park fee at $20. It's actually $15. It's $20.
And we went to 20?
Yeah, we had never changed that. It was, the only thing that we
We
had
ended up leaving
changed.
it. We increased the city tag and we left the dog park tag the same.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure that that wasn't just a typo, but the dog park
No.
is $15 for a resident, $20 for a non-resident. So, okay, I just wanted to clarify that. If you want to make that correction, then you can do that, so. And that's all I have.
So as far as the licensing goes, is it really a benefit? Or is it something that we should just drop?
I'm kind of curious what Iowa City does, even like for their dog park. I happened to be driving into Iowa City one day and I saw the dog park sign and I'm thinking, do you suppose they have, I mean, how do people get in and out? Do they just, is it just free?
No, they have a lot of, most, especially the big one, they have somebody sitting there
Oh, well,
and they
okay.
check you in and out.
All right, well, we don't have that.
No, no, we don't have that.
You know, and that's the other thing, you know, dog park, you know, that's where, I mean, we probably make the most money, and it's really hard to get people to, you know, because we don't have any. I know initially people sat out there, and I try to tell people, well, make sure you have your tag with you, because sometimes someone will check to see if you have a tag, but, you know, that only works so long.
Yeah,
But
unless you got
there's a
somebody
lot
out
of
there
dogs
that's
out there
constantly.
all the time, and my registrations do not match the activity that's out there. So.
I have a couple thoughts. I mean, everybody does it, even small towns now. There must be a reason. The other part is that it gives some leverage in our, in our ordinance for dog bites or whatever. So there's some value there, I think. Would you agree with that?
I would, yes.
Telling people that they have responsibilities to their pet, and it's in an ordinance.
Right, right. But does the value outweigh the extra time that it takes?
Dealing with a stray or with an animal that has bitten somebody or attacked another dog without that might be difficult.
Well, I know that since I've been here, and I've been here for 6 years, I know there have been dog bites in the city and at the park. There has never been any fine to anybody from any of that. So even if we had something in our ordinance that had like penalties and offenses, nothing has ever come through for me to bill it. And I don't know if it goes through the court, if it goes
Yeah.
differently that way.
Yep, it does.
Because I'm thinking I haven't seen, you know, I know it happens, but I'm not seeing the financial penalty. And that's how, unfortunately, that's how people react, is if you give them a financial penalty.
Actually, it's happened several times, but it does go through the court.
Okay,
When we do our dog bite reports, we send it on to Tipton there.
okay, all right.
And we've used it a few times. To encourage someone to put down a dog that needed to be. And those aren't easy, but using the ordinance was how we handled it, and they willingly accepted. It's only happened 2 or 3 times that I know of, but sometimes you just have to.
Right. Well, we're currently going through a total recodification of our city code, and animal control was, I know you guys looked at it, and I think now that Sergeant, I'm sorry, if you want to call it Sergeant Hannock, I'm so used to saying that, Chief Hanna, he's going to go back through some of the codes himself also, and
Good.
kind of give his opinion, but we'll going forward, once we get our full update done, we're gonna review our code annually, so that we don't get so far behind and things get out of whack and,
That's a great
you know,
idea.
antiquated and out of date and all that kind of stuff. So there'll be more to come, I'm sure, but yeah, just something to start to think about, you know, and again, I mean, I'm trying to manage the registrations, and I'm trying to keep the dog park fees up, but it's, like I said, it's something like chasing squirrels sometimes, so.
Yeah, and we reviewed these probably yearly.
The ordinance, yeah.
Yeah, and, seems like every year there's something. So,
Yeah.
good, but if he sees something wonderful, we'll
Yep.
see him at our next meeting. Good. Is there any other old business? Seeing none, new business. We need to elect officers. Are there nominations for a chairperson?
Al.
Second.
Is there another nomination for a chairperson? Anybody?
You're outvoted, Al, you're stuck.
Seeing none, chairperson. There are nominations for vice chair.
Amy?
Amy, second.
Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Seeing none, Amy is approved as vice chair. Nominations for secretary?
Gina.
Are there any other nominations for secretary? Seeing none, Gina, you're elected as secretary.
Congratulations
So,
to the new board.
okay. Police report.
Police department's pleased to report that we have not had any dog bites or animal complaints since our last meeting in November.
That is awesome.
Thank you, Officer Murdoch.
Well done.
And I suppose some of that is wintertime, shorter days, and
More snow.
Yes, I think also people are having trouble utilizing the dog park with the shorter hours, daylight hours, and then the one family per time as well. Maybe that's helping.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
yes, very good. Okay, next part is that if you've been going by the dog park, you probably have noticed
Yes,
um,
people are moving in.
there's furniture out there.
Lovely.
Sometimes it lays down in the grass, but most of it's been sitting inside, and I see people inside that shed out there. Does anybody have a problem with that, I guess?
No.
The police department doesn't have a problem with it. I think there's a lack of seating for most people out there to have one picnic table or bench.
Especially with the.
Especially the distancing.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
The other thing with the dog park is the lights out,
Yeah.
Oh,
the security lights out, so
Hmm.
Ari, Alliant or whoever probably needs called on that.
So if it's
'cause
closed at dusk, then it works.
Yeah. You know, I have not seen them out there with their headlights on this year.
I have seen that a lot.
I
oh, you have.
I have.
This
yes.
year?
Yes.
Yes, me too.
Pretty much when daylight savings takes into effect,
Yeah.
then they're trying to squeeze that little bit of time with their dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah, they seem to have that.
I guess my only thought when I saw this is that I kind of wish they'd have asked first, but, you know, I don't see a problem with it as long as it's inside the building, so.
Yeah. I mean, is that something that we should maybe look at acquiring some new furniture or?
What about the possibility of building like a bench around the perimeter of the inside?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be
Maybe
cool.
that's, I
Well,
mean,
there are a
it'd be-
couple.
It'd be permanent, it'd be
Yeah.
cheap,
No, like
and
wooden
they could
seating?
social distance
Oh.
and.
In
it
like a
wouldn't
U shape?
become-
Oh.
There's plenty of,
Yeah.
And I think, I'm assuming they're doing it to get out of the wind,
yeah.
Yeah.
you know?
That's a good
Maybe
idea.
that would be a economical, cheap way to handle
We have a
something
Boy
like that.
Scout that needs an Eagle project and,
I know lumber prices are sky high right now.
yes, they are.
Oh,
With
yeah.
that in mind.
Yeah.
Well, they could sit on the culvert.
Yes, if it ever gets in there.
Well, maybe a project to think of for spring. And sometimes too, kids are looking for their Eagle Scout projects,
Mhm.
just like they did for the sign. So,
Or even, do they still have shop class out there?
No.
not right now, they've got some projects backed up that they need to do, but Okay. Um, Was there a question about our budget? Are we exceeded, Mr. Johns?
Yeah, and I don't have all the detailed information, so I was actually, wanting to just raise it, so when Chief Hannah's here, I think he is more in-depth with what actually occurred. But we had an incident, I think it's a owner of domesticated cats that weren't taking care of them appropriately, and it was 16 cats or so.
Yep.
That wound up overloading our West Branch animal services, so we had to take them all the way to Tipton.
Right.
And then we received a bill of $800 just from that one incident. And then it gets sketchy after what happened to those cats. I think there were some that perished. Others may have been adopted out, and I just don't know. So I don't believe they were released. Or I would imagine that they would be, because I don't think we want to treat domesticated cats like feral cats and just release them.
The old policy, and 10 years ago, I used to work for them part-time, volunteer, I guess, maybe 15, was that they were tested before they could be adopted. But they held them, at one time they had 80 cats. No, 62 cats. So I went there one Saturday morning and blood tested 62 cats. And then they started adopting them out. But I don't know if the policy is still the same, but I had no idea that they would give a charge like that.
Yeah, and we don't have an agreement with them, so that kind of forced us to kind of reevaluate if we need to get an agreement, and if we're going to run into situations like this again, be a little bit better prepared for what exactly our policy speaks to in those kind of situations. But I'm sure there's a lot of steps in the way that I miss, that Chief Hannah can kind of walk us through, but that's the situation.
Okay. All right, thank you. The last thing on the agenda, it was just a thought for discussion, and as an Animal Control Commission, should we put anything in the paper about winter pet care?
We always used to.
I mean, food, water, and shelter are pretty standard. The biggest problem I usually saw was dogs licking their paws and getting the salt and getting sick. So we could put a letter to the editor, or we could put a little something in the paper. Do you think that's appropriate?
I think it is. With a little picture. Call Gregory, maybe he'll just do an article.
That might work too.
Okay. Volunteers?
To write it?
Sure.
Yes, I can make my daughter do it.
Okay. All right.
Work.
If you want to share that with me, I can always put it on our Facebook page too, a little snippet of it.
Yeah, that's a good
to
idea.
people.
Okay.
We never underestimate the power of Facebook, and then we can also, if it's like an article type thing, we can put it on our website also under the
Okay.
animal control page.
Good. Thanks for the volunteer.
Okay.
Thank you, Patty.
I even have a really cute picture with my dog with snow on it. So.
Oh.
Licking his paw?
No.
Yeah, and sometimes I see ice balls. The big thing usually is the salt.
Yeah.
And we see when my dog threw up, and that was it. So, is there any other new business? Seeing none, next meeting date is February 9th. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Amy, second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Pass. 7 o'clock. Very good. Thank you, everybody.
Hopefully I'll get that
Actually, pretty long
correction
meeting,
too.
but-
Yep,
That's
all right.
what I
And
said.
that was the big
Broke
thing,
record
right?
here.
It's $15
I
a
did
year,
my part to help.
$20
You
a
did,
month.
you did indeed.
And then this
No news
was
is the
voted
best
on.
news of all.
We haven't taken it yet.
Record, something.
Should I leave it in there then?
Yeah.